The sting of salt spray lashes your face as you're dragged toward a longship, the last familiar sensation you may ever feel. At 17, standing on your island's ragged coast, everything you knew collapses in an instant. The men hauling you speak clipped, alien sounds, their coarse laughter sharp as barking dogs. Thick ropes bite into your wrists. Behind you, smoke rolls from your burning village, a funeral prayer for the life that has ended. You are no longer a daughter or friend. You are a prize, the spoils of a raid. And this is only the beginning of a road far darker than you can imagine. This was the Viking Age, stretching from the late 700s to the mid-11th century. We picture bold explorers, raiders, shipbuilders, sagas, carved prows, and famed attacks like Lindisfarne. But behind the heroic sheen lies a harsher reality. For centuries, the Norse economy leaned heavily on a vast, disciplined trade in human beings. Slavery wasn't a side effect of plunder. It was often the goal. From Britain to the Slavic East, thousands of women were seized, stripped of identity, and sold. This history emerges from law codes, terse monastic records, ship burials, archaeology, and the unsparing notes of Arab envoys. Raids, often imagined as chaotic storms, were deliberate business ventures. Crews were financed operations. Chieftains or syndicates of partners pooled resources to build or outfit ships, timber for hulls, iron nails, wool sailcloth, tar, food, and weapons. Investors expected returns, and the most reliable return was human cargo. The ships themselves were marvels of design, perfect for this grim trade. Shallow draft craft that could cross open sea but also slip up rivers, bypassing defenses and striking far inland. Even settlements 100 miles from the coast could wake to dark silhouettes gliding silently across the water, escape already cut off. Targets were chosen carefully. Soft monasteries, lightly defended and full of people seeking refuge, were particularly lucrative. At Iona in 806, Norse warriors slaughtered dozens of monks and hauled away captives. Irish annals repeatedly describe raids where women were carried off in large numbers. A great host of women appears again and again. This wasn't rare cruelty, it was the business model. Once taken, a woman's identity vanished. In Old Norse, she became a trail, a slave. Legal texts classified slaves alongside livestock as farm property. They were fey, meaning both cattle and wealth. A trail had no legal personhood. A master could strike or kill her without penalty. She could not testify, own significant property, or contract a lawful marriage. Her children inherited her bondage. Free women were protected by fines and honor codes. Enslaved women were not protected at all. Captives were marched in chains to beaches where longships waited. Dozens of shivering figures were packed into open hulls drenched by spray, given minimal rations and exposed to illness. Many died before reaching land. Survivors faced slave markets, the nerve centers of the Viking world. Dublin-Dyflin became one of Europe's largest clearing houses for captives. From there, women were sold to Norse settlers, shipped to Scandinavia, or sent to new colonies in Iceland and the Faroes. Other important markets included Hedeby on the Danish-German frontier and Birka in Sweden, which linked Norse traders to river routes through modern Russia and Ukraine. From here, huge numbers of captives, especially Slavic people, the Sakaliba, were trafficked south to the Byzantine Empire and the Abbasid Caliphate. The scale was enormous. The 10th century Persian geographer Ibn Rushd wrote plainly that the Rus Norsemen along the rivers attacked Slavs, seized them, and sold them in Khazar and Bulgar lands. A girl taken from an English village might pass through Dublin, sail to Birka, travel down the Dnieper or Volga, and end up sold again in Constantinople or Baghdad for silver, silk, and spices. Archaeological evidence confirms this system. Tens of thousands of Islamic dirhams have been found in Scandinavia, especially on Gotland, silent proof of a thriving partnership in which human beings were a main export. Markets stripped away whatever dignity remained. Ahmed ibn Fadlan, traveling along the Volga in 922, described Norse merchants arranging captives in rows and sometimes publicly having intercourse with a slave girl to display her quality to buyers. Her body was a commodity to demonstrate. After purchase, a woman's fate depended entirely on her owner. Most endured endless, punishing labor. As a trail, she performed the heaviest duties, grinding grain until her teeth wore down, hauling water, tending hearths, brewing ale, preparing meals, washing garments in icy rivers, and producing vadmal, the wool fabric essential to the economy. Shearing, washing, carding, spinning, weaving all depended on enslaved women. Old Norse poetry like Rigsthula depicts slaves with knotted fingers, leathery skin, and aching joints, a poetic yet realistic image of their toil. Skeletal evidence from impoverished graves shows malnutrition and heavy physical strain, silent signs of deprivation. Beyond labor came sexual exploitation. A female Thrall's body legally belonged to her master. He could use her at will. Sagas written later, though stylized, acknowledge this openly. Powerful men took enslaved women as concubines or friller. These arrangements existed within the household, alongside a lawful wife. Laxdæla saga tells of Melkorka, an Irish princess taken in a raid and allegedly mutilated to keep her silent, then brought to Iceland as a concubine. Her son became famous, yet she remained a slave. Children born to concubines, friluburn, occupied an unstable position. They might be freed or left in bondage. This system of sexual domination left its imprint on genetics. Modern Icelandic DNA shows that about 80% of male settlers were Norse, but more than 60% of maternal lineages trace to Ireland and Scotland. This strongly suggests Norse men transported Celtic women, likely as captives, who became the mothers of Iceland's population. Some high-ranking women captured in raids were ransomed instead of enslaved. Chronicles describe leaders holding noblewomen or church figures hostage for payments of silver, gold, or land. These hostages lived in fear, bargaining chips in brutal diplomacy. But ransom was not the darkest fate. Human sacrifice also occurred. Archaeology and written accounts attest that enslaved women were sometimes offered as ritual victims. Ibn Fadlan described a chieftain's funeral where an enslaved woman volunteered, though refusal was impossible. Over 10 days she was dressed in fine clothes, plied with drink, led through ritual sexual acts, then killed aboard the funeral ship by an executioner known as the Angel of Death. Her screams were drowned by pounding shields, so other slaves would not resist when their time came. Archaeological finds, like the Osberg ship burial and graves at Flakstad, contain remains suggesting retainer sacrifice, often a high-status figure buried with a lower-status woman who appears to have lived a harder life. Slavery was deeply embedded in Norse society. A chieftain's prestige depended partly on how many slaves he owned. Sagas treat slavery not as a moral issue, but as a fact of life. Behind every saga hero stood unnamed enslaved women whose labor kept settlements alive and whose bodies produced the next generation. Manumission, freeing a slave, did occur, but rarely. A master might reward years of service or free someone in a will, as a Danish runestone commemorates. But most enslaved women remained in bondage for life, along with their children. This system unraveled slowly as Christianity spread in the 10th and 11th centuries. The Church discouraged enslaving Christians, shifting the focus toward pagan Slavs and Baltic peoples. Gradually, slavery gave way to medieval serfdom. But for centuries, the trade flourished, central to Norse wealth. The silver hoards, feasting halls, voyages to Iceland, Greenland, and even North America, all were fueled by stolen labor and stolen bodies. To understand the Viking Age honestly, we must confront these silenced lives. Admire the shipwrights, but remember the women who spun the wool for their sails. Marvel at exploration, but picture the terrified girls forced aboard longships. Read the sagas, but notice the casual cruelty woven into them. The history of what Vikings inflicted on captured women is not a footnote. It is a core truth of the era. The Viking world celebrated freedom, but that freedom rested on the backs of the unfree. Beneath the romance of longships lies a forgotten reality. Countless women whose freedom, labor, and breath were taken to build an empire of sails and silver.